Hello friends, and welcome to The Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know that I'm beginning my deep dive into the Lenormand system. The system which began with a card game in Germany called the Game of Hope, but was attached with the name of Lenormand because she was a popular cartomancer, card reader, psychic in France. So, to sell more cards, we got the name. She may have also worked with Atea on a different petite deck, but that's for another line of inquiry. I'm not diving into that section yet. So, I've started my deep dive into the Lenormand system, and I've done a month, and this, since the new moon has come and gone for me, it's well past come and gone for you, I'm sure, but it's come and gone for me, so I've changed out my decks. And before I show you those decks, and the spread, I've got it all laid out for us. I'd like us to focus on a topic, focus on the title for this week's video. Did you see that? I called the video The Mustard Seed. Why? Well, this week's spread reminded me of the mustard seed associations from the Christian Bible. Yes, I said it, the Christian Bible. And in the Greek, the original Greek, it would have been sinapi, yeah, the mustard seed. And it's used in the Bible to describe something that is very small and seems insignificant, but grows into something significant. It grows into something about 9 feet tall, which would be a little, almost 3 meters. Yeah, so from a very, very, very small seed to something large that could shade and shelter birds even. And why is this important for this week's spread? It's important because I think we often neglect those things which seem very, very small because they're very, very small. When we've imagined living our lives intentionally, we imagine these beautiful experiences, wonderful places, loving people, creative activities that we want to have in our lives. Yeah, we imagine large, grand, well, not always large and grand. Sometimes they may seem a little bit more modest, depending on how much you believe you can accomplish. But still, they seem probably for us something substantial, something large, something full, something fleshed out, if you will. But those things don't begin as fully fleshed out manifestations, usually. Yeah, sometimes we get this inspiration, we get this idea, and bam! Within moments or within a day, it is fully manifested. Sure, that happens. But when we consider living an intentional life, following the beautiful, powerful river current of intention towards those things we want to encounter, those things we want to experience, those things we want to manifest in our lives, as we evolve into the people who will have those experiences, who will enjoy the manifestation of those things and relationships and people and jobs and vacations and whatever. We often forget that those larger things grow from a very small seed. And those small seeds are significant. We plant the small seed, we allow it to, we nurture it. We allow it to grow. We sometimes prune it. We sometimes shape it. We sometimes form it. We sometimes keep our hands off of it so that it'll run its course of development. But it's that small seed which we plant that is very significant. Because if that planting is never done, if we never begin to give that seed the proper soil, now mustard seeds can grow almost anywhere, but we don't give it the soil for it to flourish in. We don't nourish it, nurture it with any energy, any attention. It will not develop, right? Now, this is not a cautionary tale. This is a tale of encouragement. That those things which seem small and insignificant right now at this moment can develop if we allow them, if we give them our attention, our energy, if we nurture them and pay attention. And notice how well they grow over time. This week's Lenormand and Turo spread, I think, is very strongly pointing us to that recognition that it's the seeds that we're planting now that will develop as we flow with the powerful current of intention, as we allow ourselves to evolve and we allow that seed to evolve into the experience we want to have, into the life we want to live. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because we're about to dive in to this beautiful spread. Now, I told you we've got a new set of decks, all chosen, all laid out. So what I will do now is I will show you the spread, and while you look at that spread, you can go ahead and hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you for doing that. And then we will look at the spread briefly, especially if you're new here, so that you know what it was you just saw. And then we will break the spread into its two major component parts, and we will read those parts together. Are you all ready for this journey, this intentional journey of reading the Lenormand? Well, friends, here we go. Here is the spread. What did you think of those two decks? Can you see why I chose them? The Lenormand deck is called the Pixie Lenormand. It's a mass market deck in a tin, and there'll be a link in the description box below if you want to get it. It's based on the artwork of Pamela Colman Smith. And it's a lovely little Lenormand. It's got the insert, you know, in a Lenormand card, usually, if it's a good deck, in my opinion, if it's a good deck, it'll have the card inserts, the playing card inserts. But instead of the actual insert, there's a small indication of what the playing card is down at the bottom. And I'll show you that in a moment, just a moment. So that was that deck. Now the Turo deck is one of my favorites. It's called the CS Turo, which at first I thought was the Colman Smith Turo, but no, it's the Conrad Stein deck, which is available on Make Playing Cards. So it's a print by order deck, but it's beautiful. It's got a crackle back. I'll show you the backs when we get to that. It's got crackle backs. You notice that it's got a crackle background on the front. It's a lovely redrawing of the artwork by Pamela Colman Smith. It's beautiful. The line work is crisp, clear. The colors are wonderfully, sufficiently saturated, and it's an easy deck to read, and it's an easy deck to shuffle. The cardstock is fabulous. It's got my deck has some gilding on it, but that gilding is not uncomfortable in the least. I highly recommend that deck, and like I said, there'll be a link in the description box below. So just in case you are new here, what you saw were 6 cards in the center from a Lenormand deck, and those 6 cards are arranged in a fashion that the 3 above give us where our attention is, and the 3 below give us what's going on beneath the surface. So above and below. It's an above-below spread from Lenormand. And the 4 cards in the corners are from a tarot deck, you noticed that, and they are in an elemental spread, which means that the upper left-hand corner is fire for our passions and our creativity and our leadership. The lower right-hand corner is water for our emotions and our intuition and that kind of flow. Yeah. The upper right-hand corner is for the air, our intelligence, our rational mind, our vision, our planning. And then the lower left-hand corner is earth for the earth, yeah? The work we do, our resources. It could be health. I'm not going to be reading health, but it could be health. And I'm reading those 4 cards, as we say, with elemental dignities, which means that, for example, the fire card in the upper left-hand corner, yeah? If it's a fire card in that spot, it's perfectly well situated. If it's an air card in that spot, it's well dignified, yeah? Fire and air build each other up. If it's an earth card in that spot, it's neutral, yeah? I consider it copacetic. They walk hand in hand very comfortably together. If it's a water card in that spot, then we've got problems. It's called ill-dignified, which means that they are antagonistic towards each other. They fight. They sap energy from each other, right? So friends, that's how we're reading the spread. First, we'll read the 6 Lenormand cards in the center, and then we'll look at the 4 tarot cards surrounding and see if we get a clear message. So friends, here we are. I'll show you the Lenormand cards once more now. Friends, I mentioned in a couple of videos my difficulty holding too many cards in my hands and on my lap while recording videos. Now, I've ordered a table for myself to use for this deep dive where I've got a lot of cards that I need to manipulate while I'm here on camera. That table has not arrived, but I've got a makeshift thing here in front of me, so I think we're going to be okay for this video. Hopefully next week I'll have that table all ready for me. So it's on its way. You saw the 6 cards. We had the 3 above being from left to right being the stork, the tree, and the ship. And then below from left to right we had the snake, the book, and then the clover. So I usually like to get an overall feel for how positive or negative the spread is. So on top, we've got a positive neutral card, another positive neutral card, and then yet another positive neutral card. So the 3 cards on the top are generally on the positive side of stuff, right? All lined up, all very nice. Below, from left to right, we had 2 neutral negative cards, but then 1 positive. So that's what? That gives us, I think, a very neutral bottom base. Yeah? 1 positive, 2 neutral negative cards. I think they balance each other out. So we've got a generally positive spread. I hope you agree. And we'll start with the 3 cards on top, yeah? 3 cards on top give us, again, the stork, the tree, and the ship. The stork. I love this image of the stork because these storks have taken off and they've started flying, which is fabulous. This is something I'd really like to see in a stork card because the stork card indicates movement, right? It's the movement forward. It indicates movement, a transition. It's a positive change. We expect positive things from the stork card. Things that are developing, but maybe not as expected. Yeah, there's as they say, a bun in the oven. It's not arrived yet, but the stork has taken off, right? It's in transit. We are in transit. Now, this is a queen, so we have the possibility. Now, you can't see the queen. Now, I mentioned that this deck has not, instead of the card insert, it indicates the card at the bottom. Can you see this? At the bottom right-hand corner, there is a heart and a Q. There are a heart and a Q, which give us the Queen of Hearts, right? So this is a loving kind of woman, right? It's a gentle, home-loving woman is possible here. Maybe a female friend, a sister, a nurse, or a caregiver of some sort are possible here. The question that I ask every week, however, is how can we live our lives more intentionally in the coming week? So, if you naturally embody any of those things, if you are a caregiver, if you are a nurse, maybe you are a nurse. I'm thinking of one person in particular. If you are a nurse, this could be that, but somebody who is gentle and home-loving in a more feminine way. And remember, it makes no matter whether we are in male bodies, we're in female bodies, we're in trans bodies, we're in cis bodies, we're in intersex bodies, it doesn't matter. We all have that feminine, nurturing quality within us that we can access if we allow ourselves to. So, it could be that here. But I think probably we're thinking more in terms of transitions, changes. How can we live our lives more intentionally? Our intentional lives are lives of transition, of movement. And if we allow ourselves to open to the power of intention, those changes will be positive. Things will develop, and they may not develop as expected. But how are they going to develop? This next card gives us a clue into that. The tree. Now, the tree is often read in terms of well-being, yeah, our health. Some people actually take the tree to be ill health, lack of health, which I would not tend to do unless I see things around the tree which indicate a sapping of energy, a sapping of energy from the tree. I think the tree naturally is a healthy thing, right? Now, it could also be our outdoor environment. It could be body, mind, or health. Body, mind, spirit as part of a healthy ecosystem within the body, right? It could be something that starts small and grows slowly but solidly, aka the mustard seed, right? This could be a lifelong transition, a lifelong movement, a lifelong change. But it's not a swift change, right? We need the roots to go down before the tree will grow above. Now, we might be tapping into our ancestry here as well, right? This change could be a change which is nurtured and nourished by our own ancestral lineages, our own roots. Being like familial roots, you know? But whatever it is, this change, this movement, this transition appears to be something that is enduring, long-lasting, and not something that's going to happen quickly. It's going to take time for that mustard seed to grow. And this next card, I think, really emphasizes that. The ship, right? The ship, which could be travel and holiday. It could be trade or commerce, things that, but what do ships do? Yeah? They take us on holiday, sure, but it's not a holiday that we can walk to. It's a holiday that is a long distance. Ships travel, not a boats, not a canoe, not a kayak, but a ship. A ship travels a long distance, perhaps internationally, but across large bodies of water. Or down not small rivers or streams, but large rivers, right? This is a transit that is going to take a long time, a great distance. So while the ship could also mean things like a motor vehicle, or longing or nostalgia, or even a foreigner, like a business person, I think we're thinking more of crossing over, a soul's journey perhaps even. So this stork, this movement, this transition, this positive change that will take a long time, that time is emphasized here by the ship, and that it could even be a soul's journey, a crossing over to a very new and very different life. But just like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, this journey begins with the planting of a very small seed, a mustard seed. Yes? Now, we've got 3 cards below, right? And these cards were problematic. A little bit because of my prejudices. But, let's see. So, the first card is the snake. And a lot of people read this card very negatively. I go for the neutral negative side of the snake. I don't think snakes are bad things. I like snakes. Tangent, even my understanding of the snake in the Bible in Genesis is not necessarily a bad thing. The eating of the apple, I think, is not necessarily a bad thing. If you want to know what I mean by that, or what my strange way of thinking is, leave a comment in the description box below, and if there are enough comments down there, maybe I'll make a separate video. But for me, the divine did not put the tree of life there. Not the tree of, well, the tree of life is there too, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden to screw us over. The caution, don't eat of the tree, was a caution because the two, now we're talking very, allegorically, the 2 first humans, allegorically, the beginning of humanity, was not ready to get that knowledge when they first appeared in the garden. But they stayed in the garden for a while, right? They started naming all the stuff. And then Eve, not Adam, Eve gets curious, wants to know more. And at that point, the snake, devil? Maybe. Not to me, no. The snake in the garden is the one who says, yes. You're ready for a little more knowledge. You're ready for a little bit more. And then things go on from there. And if you want to know how I read the rest of that story, again, let me know in the comments below. But for me, the snake is, instead of, sometimes can be the liar, the betrayer. Betrayer and betrayal, yeah? It could be a deceptive woman. It could be a temptress, a seductress. It could be a snake in the grass. It could be a false person, right? It could be a rival, especially a female rival because it's a queen. A jealous woman, a demanding, or a treacherous woman. All possible. I don't think in this spread that's the direction to go, because of the next card. And when we get to the next card, I'll bring this up again. But for me, the snake is also indicative of two things. Three things. It does not move in a straight line, usually. Now, there are times when some snakes are able to raise themselves up in a straight line to get from one tree to another. There are snakes like that, but that's not the snake that we've got here. This is a snake that is going to wind its way forward, generally, or sideways. So that's that curvy, that indirect path. One of transitions and movement back and forward, tacking and turning, that kind of movement forward. Or snakes shed their skin, right? So this could be a transformation, a transition. Snakes are also the animal of knowledge and intelligence from a very ancient tradition. So, for me, here, what's going on beneath the surface of this transformation that's going to take a long time, I think is an understanding that we are growing in knowledge and intelligence through our own transformation that is not going to be a quick change. Right? Just like the snake moves forward in a winding way, so our knowledge and intelligence, which is called for here, is going to take time, and it's going to be more windy rather than direct. Yeah? And that idea for me is emphasized by this next card, which is the book. Now, the book can be secrets, things that are not shown yet. What is hidden will be revealed. But it's also knowledge. Knowledge that is not open yet, but knowledge that is there to be dispersed, right? The book is not information from one person to another, but rather information that is dispersed broadly and requires a little bit of knowledge in order to access the information, right? You've got to know how to read. It's also the card of study and learning. And so, because this card is the card of knowledge disseminated and studying that knowledge and learning, that is why I'm reading this card in the sense of knowledge, intelligence, that is being gained as we transform. It's a transformational journey of knowledge and intelligence through study and learning. Does that make sense? And then the next card being the clover, which could mean green or something small. But it's also small happiness, small fortune, small hope, which does not necessarily have to stay small, but right now is small. AKA the mustard seed that I saw in the upper row, that small thing which grows. So this knowledge, this information that comes through our transition, our transformation, brings fortune and hope. And it's small at the beginning. It's a blessing. That could also be a blessing, right? And you'll notice that in this deck we've got 4-leaf clovers, which I like. I like the 4-leaf clover over the 3-leaf clover because it really does emphasize. Now, we don't read the cards in the same kind of symbolic fashion that we might read some tarot cards, which are drawn to also elicit a visual kind of intuitive understanding. Right? But these are still symbolic cards. And the clover, being a 4-leaf clover, just like some things are directional, the ship, which direction is the ship moving? And you'll notice that in this deck, right, the ship was moving in the direction of the tree and the stork. The storks, I don't have a clear directionality with the storks here, because one seems to be pointing off that way, one seems to be pointing off that way, but the ship is definitely moving in the direction of this knowledge, right, and this transformation, this journey of transformation, which is important. Directionality is important, especially for me in Lenormand. So, just like that directionality is important, the aspect of the 4-leaf clover here, I think, is also important. Like, I'd rather see birds, 2 birds on a card rather than 1 bird, because of the communicative nature of the birds. They talk with each other. They're not talking by themselves, yeah? So, seeing these two 4-leaf clovers helps strengthen that idea of the luck or the blessing, which is small at first, but has the potential of growing. Especially if we keep on this journey of transformation and growth in knowledge and understanding, and allow ourselves to open the book, to receive that knowledge and that blessing and that fortune, that small fortune, which can grow into a tree above. We'll get there in a moment. So, those were the 3 cards below. Now, there are two other ways that we're going to read this spread. One is in vertical columns, right? So the first vertical column we have is, now I'm really glad I got this little table in front of me, is the stork and the snake. So remember, we're looking at the stork being the main idea supported by the snake below. So this is a positive change, a movement, a transition of knowledge, of intelligence. But it's one that is not going to be straightforward, right? It's a winding path. And we might have to wait for something, for this transition to begin, or for it to be completed. I think my intuition says we are at the point of takeoff. We've got to make this choice. We've got to make the decision to open to the powerful flow of intention which will carry us forward. But if we open, we're ready to take that journey now. It'll look small, but it has the potential to grow. The next 2 cards we see here are the tree and the book. Right? The tree and the book. Now the tree above is the main idea, which is, right, deeply rooted. So deeply rooted, our well-being. What about do we know about our well-being here? That our well-being is growing from a base of knowledge, from a base of received wisdom. That's growing as we study and as we learn, right? Now, that received wisdom can be from our ancestors, can be from our traditions, our roots. But I think it also asks for us to do the work of studying it, of growing in knowledge. Yeah? So we've got the idea that that we're in a transformation, a journey, a movement in knowledge. From the first column, from the second one, we're growing slowly with our roots based on knowledge and information and learning, and maybe secrets. Maybe there will be secrets that can be revealed from our ancestry, from our traditions, that we can access as we go on this journey. Towards what? Towards the ship and the clover, right? The ship, our long path, our long journey that is fortunate, that is lucky. And the luck is small, but it is lasting. And perhaps can grow because the journey is long. Right? Oh, and I didn't mention this, that the ship was here for us last week. The ship was in the left-hand side last week. Here, this week it's on the right. So it's moved from the beginning to the end as not necessarily a destination, but as a descriptor of the overall message. The ship, our transition, long-term transition, is in motion. I hope you see how this spread is reinforcing those ideas. Now, we've got two, I think of them as chevrons to read, or two V's, yeah? There's the upper pointing chevron, which would start with the lower left-hand corner with the snake, to the tree, to the clover. And then the downward pointing chevron, which starts in the upper left-hand corner with the stork, to the book, to the ship, right? So let's read the upper pointing one, the thing that is coming into our consciousness, into our conscious sphere. And so we start off with the snake, the tree, and the clover. So it's something fortunate. It's a transition of growth that is fortunate. A fortunate transition of growth, right? So the tree is still central. We're coming to realize that our well-being, the development of our body, mind, and spirit is not a one and done, not a quick fix, not something that's going to happen in the near future, but rather is something that's going to take time. And it's going to be a growth in knowledge and in intelligence that is not a direct path, but is fortunate and will bring us happiness, and maybe even hope. And it might include some synchronicity, some lining up, some good chances, some good opportunities, if we're open to them. And we do the work. What work? So what is diving deep at this moment? What's diving deep at this moment starts from the stork to the book to the ship, right? So it's the book. It's what's diving deep is things that have not yet been revealed to us, right? With the book. There's some knowledge here. And, it should be this way, I believe, for you, yeah? The knowledge that is not revealed yet is that we may not quite know that we're in transition yet. This transition is not clear to us. But we know that we're moving. That is revealed. We know that we're moving. We know that we're on a long journey, but it's not clear to us yet that journey is a transition to something good, something better, something that is perhaps unexpected. And that journey, that knowledge, I should say, that is not revealed to us yet, can be revealed. Will be revealed if we allow ourselves to open our eyes and our hearts to receive the knowledge from perhaps, again, our ancestors, our traditions, but also from our study, opening our minds to and being willing, able, and ready to learn from books perhaps or other sources. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. If it does, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And we're not done yet. We've got 4 tarot cards to look at right now. So let me show you those cards and we'll read them together. Here they are. The 4 cards you just saw were, in the upper left-hand corner, we had the Magician in the fire spot. In the lower right-hand corner, in the water, we had the Page of Swords. In the upper right-hand corner in air, we had the Star. And then in the lower left-hand corner in earth, we had the Moon. We got a lot of major arcana cards and then one brainy card with the swords, right? Our rationality. But we're going to start off in the fire. Because, why? Because the way I imagine, now, okay, so we're getting into a pit of, a mire of thoughts right now, but because the way I learned and I understand the elements that I received through my study of the Thoth deck by Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris, that includes the Christian Kabbalah, which includes the Tree of Life, not the Tree of Life singular, but the trees of life perhaps, being that there's a tree of life for 4 different levels. One for fire, one for water, one for air, one for earth, and they move down in that order. So the way I see the elements, they move from fire, which is energy, into water, which is the undefined space, and those 2 together bring forth air, and then those 3 together bring forth the earth. Yeah? So that's the way I organize things in my little brain. So we start off with the fire. Let's start off there. Now the fire, in the fire section we have this, just gotta say, isn't this a gorgeous image? The background, the colors, I mentioned the crackleback backs. I've got the amber cracklebacks. I love the amber ones. There's also black, I think, and maybe an orange. So there are different colors, there are different, I'm not sure what's still available. There will be a link to the shop in the description box below. But Conrad Staines, his decks are just phenomenal. So we got this beautiful magician here. And you see the magician standing in the as above so below pose with the wand in the upper left-hand side, right? Pointing up, and then the lower hand on the left going down to the earth, directing energy. All of the tools are there for the magician on the table to use. So the magician has everything he, she, or they need, and he, she, or they creates. So this is the card of manifestations, right? Resourcefulness. Also the power directed from spirit here into the material world. Adroitness. This is our creative mental power. Inspired action. So our inspiration is a fiery thing, to me. Our creative mental power is an airy thing, so this magician in the fire section is wonderful. If we think of it as a little fiery, it's in the perfect spot. If we think of it as a little airy, mental, it's in the perfect spot because that's well dignified. And the magician was here in the same position last week from a completely different deck. So, just saying. We got the magician here. Our passions are creative now. Our passions also, our instincts and our inspiration is powerful and creative now. We have the tools we want to do the stuff we want to do. Right? And then we move down into the water with the Page of Swords. And swords err in water, they're fine. No problems. Yeah? In fact, I see no problems in this spread whatsoever. There's no ill dignity here, which is great. So our emotions are where? Our emotions, we're feeling new ideas. We're feeling the feelings of curiosity with the Page of Swords, the curious one, right? The asker of questions, the one who has a thirst for knowledge, thirst, water for knowledge, right? And the page has new ways of communicating and is a little ambitious. But really, the most important thing is that curiosity, that thirst for knowledge, and feeling that, feeling the desire to know. Pointing directly to the Lenormand spread we just read, right? And then we've got in the air, what? We've got the star card. Now, the star card can point towards, it depends on the tradition you're reading for. It can be Aquarius, I believe. But if it is Aquarius, that's great because Aquarius is in one of, okay, so I can speak English. Aquarius is one of the 3 air zodiacal signs, right? The 3 air zodiacal signs in the order of the wheel begins with Gemini, then Libra, and then Aquarius, right? So, if this is an air sign in the air section of the spread, we are in really good place. Yeah? So, the star is our hope, our faith, and our optimism. We have the potential to have very optimistic minds, very hopeful minds. And to have faith that that seed will grow, right? And just like the woman on the star card is pouring water on the land and in the water, right? One pitcher is nourishing the land and returning some water back to the cycle of water, which moves from the earth up into the atmosphere and comes back down in rain, right? There's that water cycle. So we feed that cycle, but we also nourish. I'm sorry, my phone made a weird sound and I thought my camera had turned off. So we also nurture, we also nourish the ground around us, right? Just like we want to nurture and nourish that mustard seed that we planted. So we do that mentally. Again, this is a journey of knowledge and learning and in that kind of transition. So this card here in the air makes perfect sense. We have a sense of purpose, renewal, inspiration. And it's an inspiration that is spiritually and, spiritually based. We have vision here now. Yeah, we've gone through the disruption of the tower from the tower to the star to the moon, right? So the star is our first taste of hope, of healing from past disruptions, and we have a vision of where we're going. It might not be the full picture, but we've got a vision of where we're going. And then this next card. Remember, I said that the star moves from the tower to the moon. And then here in the earth, very interestingly, we've got the moon. This card is a little problematic for me in this spot. Why? Now, elementally, not ill-dignified, right? The moon, whether it's associated with Cancer or not, it's a watery card, right? The moon is a watery planet. So, not because there's water up there, that's not what I'm saying, because it influences the water here on the earth. So, the moon in the earth is, they are well dignified, I believe, and a strong influence. But that influence with the moon could be a negative, on the negative side, right? We see the creature coming up from the water, we see the dog and the wolf howling at the moon in the dark, and a lot of people read this card as a very negative card of fears and anxiety. The subconscious, in a kind of scary monster, monsters are coming up from within me kind of way of reading this card. But I think this card, while it could be illusion, our vision that we have in the air might not be all that clear when it comes to real everyday life. Yet. So there might be a little bit of anxiety because we don't know whether that mustard seed is going to grow or not. Right? There might be a sense here in our grounded natures of a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear. But it could also be our intuition and our imagination having the potential to guide us. That some reflection might benefit us here in our everyday lives. And that just as the moon changes in its cycles, it's not a beam of light that is constant. The light in our world is going to wax and wane as we are on this journey. Some days it's going to be bright, some days it's going to be less bright. Some days we're only going to have the light of the star to guide us. And we had a whole discussion about the star in last week's video, right? So this being here, along with the moon, I think, is informative. So we have the potential of our intuition, our imagination, and our ability to reflect on what we're doing here in the everyday world, our everyday workaday world, is going to benefit us as we move on this journey of transformation and transition. That is going to be beneficial if we allow ourselves to move on that journey. We can always stop ourselves. We can always say, nope, I'm not going to move, and see what happens. I don't think what happens will be very nice if we stop moving, if we don't go on this journey. Because that is how we can live our lives more intentionally in this week. By going and starting and taking this journey. That makes sense, yes? I hope it does. It makes sense to me. If it makes sense to you, let me know. If it doesn't make sense to you, if you would read these cards differently, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas, your feelings about this spread. So friends, here we are at the end of the spread, the end of the reading. Thank you. Thank you very much for doing all those things, hitting the thumbs up button, subscribing. It helps the channel. It helps other people find the channel. Thank you for doing that. If you want a reading from me, my email address is below. Send me an email to thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. You send me an email, we'll get you a reading. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.